Welcome to the Chatbots, AI and Biometrics What's Next for Telco CX webinar, organized jointly by Nuance Communications, a technology pioneer with market leadership in conversational AI and ambient intelligence, and the Fastmode, a leading telecoms media. With us today, we have Ariel Friedenberg, VP Business Development, Security and Biometrics, Nuance Communications. Ariel has vast experience in both fraud prevention and security and has a strong background in law, having worked as an attorney in leading law offices.
Hi everybody, Ariel Friedenberg. Thank you for having me. Very excited for our discussion. I'm based in Tel Aviv, but I do have a global role at Nuance, having the luxury and privilege to work with many customers around the globe, and especially I'm focused on telcos, which is why I'm so excited to talk about customer experience and AI together with you guys on this panel.
We also have Diane Megas. Diane comes with over 25 years of CX experience and has worked with and in brands such as AT&T, CommScope, Ciena, and Cisco.
Hi everyone, welcome. I'm very excited to be here. Ariel and I are going to have, I think, a very dynamic conversation about some things that are challenging but also opportunities today. So I have been blessed in my career to see many, sometimes hundreds of organizations and what they're doing in customer experience, especially around the topics we're going to talk about today, and really taking advantage of some of the technology. That came through my position as CEO for the Customer Experience Professionals Association. And so we're bringing to you some things that you should be thinking about when you think about how you're going to understand, interact, engage, and get those customers to come back and advocate for you. So we'll look forward to the conversation.
And I'm Tara Neal, Executive Editor at the Fastmode. I have over 23 years of experience in research, analysis and strategy, most of which are in telecommunications and tech. The first session for today is the presentation of some of the highlights from our research report. This segment will take about 15 minutes. This will be followed by a roundtable discussion by Ariel and Diane, which will take around 30 minutes. If you have any questions during any of the sessions, please input them into the dialog box. The questions will be answered by email by Ariel, Diane, or me. We will get in touch with everyone who signed up with the full recording of this webinar. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, we are going to start with a brief presentation of some of the highlights from a joint report by Nuance and the Fastmode. The report, How Operators Are Putting CX First with Biometrics and Artificial Intelligence, was launched this year and is available for download at bit.ly/2022 CX report. So in this report, we surveyed 211 operator professionals, most of whom are from CSPs. 19% were from mobile operators and the remaining were from cable. Most of the respondents are from EMEA and North America. Australia, New Zealand and South America in combination contributed to a third of the respondents. Okay, well, the majority of the respondents are from larger organizations with annual revenue of more than $5 billion. Only 6% were organizations with a revenue of less than $1 billion. Okay, so let's move on to the findings. The first that we observe is a growing focus on telco CX. Here we see that over 88% of the operators have a CX strategy. Okay, we can also of course say that over 1 in 10 don't have one. So continuing on the level of emphasis operators place on CX, over 88% say they measure their CX performance. Here we are looking at general measures like the Net Promoter Score, the NPS, Customer Effort Score, CES, and Customer Satisfaction Score, CSAT. And yes, As expected, larger telcos are investing more effort on CX. We see this in the top chart where around 90% have a CX strategy, and on the chart at the bottom, we have more than 91% of large telcos measuring their CX performance. Okay, the corresponding figures for the smallest telcos, if you see in the chart, is around 77%. Okay, so the next one. In terms of region, globally, we see the emphasis on CX more pronounced in North America as well as Australia. If you look at both charts, i.e., who's having a strategy and measuring the performance, the percentages from EMEA and South America are constantly less than North America and Australia. So that's one of the observations. So moving on to the current state of CX. Here's an interesting chart that shows the phase in the customer journey where customer care is most important. Okay, issue resolution has the highest score as this is where the most number of interactions take place. Onboarding is another area. A lot of experience takeaways happen when customers are signing up on a new service or brand. We then looked at all the different types of touch points in terms of their adoption rate. As you can see in the chart, call centers with real agents are still the most popular, followed by live chats with real agents. Also popular are social media and the traditional walk-in centers. There's also good uptake of operator apps and the use of operators' website. IVR hotlines come 7th. Not as popular are the new types of touch points. Here we assessed chatbots and virtual assistants. So what we can see here is that there's a lower uptake on automated digital interactions as these are still in their nascent stage, and the general lack of conversational intelligence we see across these new types of channels often leads to rigid, non-engaging communications. So that rigidity is something we have to address, okay, to shift more interactions to these newer channels. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. Let's zoom out for a while and look at customer experience. Customer experiences are essentially built via one, customers' interactions with the operator. So most of which take place through a variety of customer care channels. Like we are talking about direct interactions. If customer interactions are well supported, and the takeaway is great, it leads to a better telco CX. The second one, of course, is the quality of service. If the speed or bandwidth or coverage is great, then it builds into a great experience. Okay, so with telco organizations, we find more emphasis on customer care. This is driven essentially by the fact that QoS is not something that is within the control of the operator. So especially in the long run, so things like congestion, software or hardware issues, and operational processes such as migration, upgrades, etc., can always impact service quality. But with a solid customer care, these issues can be escalated quickly and resolved faster. Negative experiences on QoS can be negated by close interactions with continuous updates on the network and the service and with timely notifications. So customer care can provide strong assurance to customers and ensure that their sentiments and feedback are acted upon. All in all, customer care is becoming an increasingly important driver of telco CX. But the emphasis on customer care goes beyond addressing service quality issues. A strong customer care can become a service differentiator in itself. A strong customer care can also drive monetization. We asked operators to identify some of the reasons why there should be more focus on customer care. Okay, the opportunity to cross-sell when the customer is better engaged emerged at the top. With telco's breadth of services continuing to grow, customer care can be leveraged to promote video and audio streaming, upsell more data, offer roaming plans, etc. So in the second place, we have proliferation of new customer care channels, which obviously will require operators to align their communications across all channels and integrate the information systems to support omni-channel strategies. And the other factors that push CX, the emphasis on CX as listed, pertain to customer issues that have grown from simple connectivity complaints to issues revolving around charging, network performance such as latencies and speeds, billing errors, etc. All these admittedly give rise to more inquiries and complaints which would have to be addressed by customer care. Okay, other factors as seen here is the use of customer care to reduce churn, serving as the last resort to reverse customer exit decisions. The other less rated factors is the use of customer care to create brand differentiation, arising from both homogeneous services and operating models, and the increasing number of services and plans, and the ensuing complexities that needs to be managed. Okay. So the next slide. So now that we established the importance of customer care in driving CX, the survey looked at the gaps, the present gaps in customer care. According to the operators surveyed, 94% agree that there is a high dependency on human intervention. And at the same time, channels and departments managing customer requests, enquiries and issues are still very fragmented. So other gaps include susceptibility of customer care to security and fraud risks, such as phishing and replay attacks, then the complex authentication, the lack of customization, and the lack of performance tracking. Okay, less rated gaps, meaning gaps which are not rated as high, are customers being unaware of other channels and the lack of privacy in the case of non-encrypted communications. Okay, so the survey then looked at how two key technologies that can significantly improve customer care operations can be implemented by telcos. The first is biometrics. Biometrics uses voice, user device behavior, and conversational patterns to identify and authenticate a user. The second technology is AI/ML based intelligence, which is basically the ability to drive intelligent responses that are tailored to the user's circumstances and needs. So we asked operators if biometrics can address some of the current gaps they see in customer care. So we have here a high 95.1% of operators agreeing to biometrics being effective as a means for authentication, and 94.1% agree that it is effective for addressing fraud and cyber threats. Okay, so similarly, we looked at how technologies such as AI/ML driven intelligence and automation and how these they can address how the technology addresses the gaps related to human intervention and a lack of personalization. Overall, we see a strong agreement among operators on the impact of AI/ML based intelligence and automation on various channels. For example, proactive notifications, virtual assistants, voice and conversational IVR, messaging, and chatbots. AI/ML essentially allows conversations to become more customized, responsive, and appropriate to the circumstances of the customer. Both biometrics and AI/ML based intelligence revolves around software. A key implementation aspect is the choice of vendors for the software. 47% of operators that we surveyed prefer hybrid vendors, which involves partnering with a key vendor alongside a few specialist vendors. Okay, so in terms of deployment, we see the preference for third-party cloud or hyperscalers with 29.4% of operators opting to host their applications on these platforms. This is compounded by another 30.3% of operators who opt for a combination of on-premises, SaaS, and third-party cloud hyperscaler deployments. Okay, in the next slide, AI-based intelligence specifically entails strong big data and analytical capabilities. So we have only 33% of operators who rate their big data and analytical capabilities as strong. So and when it comes to the incorporation of AI into customer care touchpoints, only 13.6% of operators admit to being able to deliver conversational or human-like interactions for customer care. Okay, so the next slide. The survey also showed a strong demand for customization of AI ML software, with a third of operators opting for specialist, essentially industry-based vendors who provide highly customizable algorithms. Another 31.0% of operators opt for a hybrid model where specific modules or parts sourced from a vendor are combined with in-house developed software. Okay, so moving on, the next slide. In terms of organizational readiness to adopt and implement both AI-based intelligence and biometrics, we note a good level of readiness, specifically in terms of compliance with local regulations and customer data security or protection requirements. Operators have also integrated customer data with other telco systems and do have cloud capabilities to store and transfer data between channels. Other areas where there's considerable readiness is the unification of customer data across different touchpoints and a sufficiently trained workforce in biometrics and AI-based intelligence. Okay. So moving on, here's an interesting insight. Biometrics is great, but we have some issues to tackle. So privacy, trust, situational constraints, unfamiliarity resulting in resistance to change. So these are some of the factors that we feel are challenging the uptake of biometrics. And we asked the operators if what they thought about remediation factors that can remedy these challenges. So top of the chart is influence from other industries. Okay, so such as banking, where biometrics-based authentication and fraud management is already well adopted. Then we have the push from tech-savvy younger subscriber base. Interestingly, a large proportion of operators are confident that subscribers will learn to onboard themselves to biometrics by playing around with it. The other factors that can mitigate any hesitance we see for biometrics are the options given to subscribers to onboard themselves gradually as they become more familiar to using biometrics. And then we have the influence of marketing campaigns, telco marketing campaigns, and also the increasing emphasis on privacy and neutrality, which makes biometrics a top choice. Okay, so the next slide. So what outcomes are we targeting with biometrics and AI ML driven intelligence, specifically for customer care and CX in general? 96% of operators expect these technologies to greatly augment customer experience while reducing costs. So we have a big chunk of operators who agree that these technologies do forward the objectives for customer care. And then the second biggest outcome is the prevention of fraud and protection of the brand. Other outcomes include the empowerment of agents and employees to be more efficient, trusted customer advocates. This is followed by empowerment of the developers to build conversational experiences. And finally, we have the increase in subscriber acquisition and revenue. Okay, so these are some of the highlights from the CX survey. For detailed information on the survey and its findings, you can download the report at bit.ly/2022 CX report. Okay, so moving on to our roundtable discussion, we have Ariel and Diane who will be discussing a number of topics on CX for operators. Okay, so first off, what can operators learn from other industries in terms of delivering greater CX?
So, as we saw in other industries, customer experience is one of the most important areas in which a service provider can differentiate themselves. And as we saw, this can be a key reason for a customer to either keep their loyalty with a brand or leave the brand. And hence, we see that telcos too are looking to find areas in which they can improve customer experience in different areas of their business. And what I'm hoping that we will talk about today is how all that comes together with the new technology we have, the new AI capabilities we have, and how we can really impact the customer experience in the telco space.
And I love that you talked about the impact, Ariel, because I think one of the pieces that we want to discuss today is a little bit about how we're creating value for the customer through those interactions, whether it's saving them time or getting them the best deal that they can or getting them the best equipment that they need for what they're trying to accomplish. Any of those things are very important, and being able to create that value and create that connectivity to what you're doing for them in their lives is an important factor. And it's really a pressure point now for operators to really figure out how they're going to understand the value the customer's after and how they're going to deliver it, so they can see a growing share in the marketplace, both for consumers and B2B.
Okay, for the next question, this is an interesting one. With the pandemic and the fast-changing industry landscape, is the focus on digital transformation, particularly in reducing customer effort and delivering seamless omni-channel experiences, still relevant?
Absolutely, and even more than ever. The pandemic changed the way we interact with the service providers and with telcos. We spend more time with our devices. We need more support. We consume more services. We are looking for more automation and digital transformation as we interact with our telco. And equally important, and I'm sure that Diane will refer to that too, is that we see that the security and fraud has become a much more significant and severe problem for many of us consumers during the pandemic. And hence the telco space, the telcos have a serious challenge that they need to address, in which they need to help us maintain the best experience across multi-channel experience, across different channels, digital, voice, IVR, interactive voice response systems, and they also need to address fraud. Diane, please.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think fraud and security is important, and that goes back to the whole value. You've got to keep my data, you've got to keep me protected. It's one of the things that we have expectations around. And I think what you're referring to is the fact that organizations have to really change the way they think and work. And what I mean by that is we have seen organizations actually change their organizational structure and how they're designed. For example, one operator literally is hiring people now that are coming in to do about 80% of their work in their field, in their area of expertise, and they're making sure that they have 20% of their time dedicated to these cross-channel, multi-channel interactions, so that everybody understands the importance of how they're really caring for that journey, as we talk about it, in the organization. So we're seeing that this more holistic view and orchestration of the experience, regardless of where the customer's coming from, regardless of what they're after, that they're able to get to that by channel, by expertise, and to get the value that we're talking about. It's keeping the expectations, the emotions, and the execution of trust, of value, and ease of doing business that are all components now of how organizations are really thinking differently about the customer and what they need to do to engage them and keep them protected and keep them using the equipment that's best for them and the programs and the services that are best for them. So it's really working together with the customer to understand what they're after, what's best for them, and making those recommendations to create that value we talked about earlier.
Okay, all right, interesting. Okay, then let's move on to the next question we have for the panel is how does employee engagement impact operator CX?
It's one of the most exciting areas for us at Nuance, which we are now a Microsoft company, and it really all comes together. What's interesting is that the employees' engagement is one of the most important metrics our customers are tracking. It's equally important to the way they are tracking customer engagement, because the level of engagement of their employees will ultimately determine the time to resolution, the focus of the employee, and the overall customer experience. And thus, the customer-facing employee experience is equally important, since it contributes equally to the overall outcome and experience of an engagement with the customer. And in that spirit, a seamless automatic identification and verification process, which is one of the most tedious, common processes any customer-facing employee will be engaged with at the beginning of any engagement, is allowing employees to focus on the customer and resolving their problem and not be perceived by the customer as a bad cop. And that's exactly the area in which we are trying to work with our customers to impact not only the customer experience, but the employee's experience. And there are many, many ways we impact that, but one of the most important and common ways is by simplifying the identification and verification process to be completely transparent and not on the burden of the agent. It's not a burden of the agent, it's now the technology that works for the agent. And the agent now is completely free to focus on the customer that is in front of them. And that is what helps our customers provide more service, better service, and more secure service to their customers. Diane, please.
I think it's a super point that you make about the employee experience is important in two ways. One, the way that you talked about it is, do they have the right tools and information? Are we taking away some of those very routine things that can be handled by systems in order for them to spend time really understanding and having a conversation with that customer, to understand their needs, to understand their expectations, the value that they're looking for, all the things we've just talked about. The other side of that is, yes, giving them what they need in order to serve that customer well, but we also are seeing a lot of operators who are taking employee experience to a little bit of the next level. They're seeing employees as customers of the brand. So they're involving them in creating new offerings and services because they're talking to customers every day. They're thinking about their own onboarding experience, right, as employees of the brand. So when you combine the fact that you're actually listening and applying experience management to the employee, that's a great thing. And you combine that with the ability for them to have the right tools, resources, information, knowledge, skill set in order to do their work, and not only do their work, but really shine at their work and engage those customers better. We see, to your point, the value of that creation of that employee experience. And what I mean by value is you have employees staying longer, customers staying longer, more advocacy for both the internal and external. So all the benefit we see coming from great experiences for customers, we see the same financial benefit for the organizations. So they're starting to realize both of those things, customers as your revenue and employees as usually one of your highest costs. How do you optimize both of those and really make the place to work and the place to really serve customers the best it can be from both their personal perspective and professionally, how they're able to serve that customer?
Interesting. Okay, then. What impact can changing customer experience have on financial results for operators?
That is one of the most exciting areas. I'm working closely with my customers around the globe. ROIs, return on investment models, cost-benefit analysis, really one of the key areas in which we at Nuance Microsoft are focusing on. We see financial impact in at least 3 dimensions. The first one, which is very important for any operator, is the average handle time reduction. Operators who have been successfully able to deploy biometrics, and specifically voice biometrics in contact centers, have seen a reduction of between 45 and 60 seconds in handle time on each call. Some of the operators, take tens of millions of calls annually, and you can do the math yourself and see the significant cost reductions of millions of dollars for different operators. The second financial impact is that we are seeing more self-service and more automation. And when operators have been able to deploy successfully biometrics and AI in their self-service channels, whether it's mobile or IVR, they have seen more automation of calls who have been successfully and securely verified in the interactive voice response systems by voice biometrics. This again is translated into savings of millions of dollars. Some of our customers are looking for ways to self-serve more calls. They're looking for ways to secure their digital and self-service channel in a sufficient way, and biometrics and AI gives them that opportunity. And finally, and equally important, fraud losses reduction. Operators have been suffering from increasing fraud losses in their sales business. Many of the operators on the webinar would probably agree, and it will resonate with them, that they have been seeing a lot of fraud losses during the pandemic, an increased rate of fraud. They are seeing a lot of the fraud in their sales department of new devices, high-end devices being stolen by fraudulent credit cards, fraudulent identities. And by using security and biometrics and AI, they have been able to see an automatic and immediate reduction of their losses. Some of our customers have been able to detect hundreds of fraudulent calls every day. And they are saying that this is making their work much more efficient. So again, the three dimensions of financial impact operators have been seeing are average handle time reduction, more self-service and automation, and fraud losses reduction. And all that comes together into a very solid cost-benefit analysis that our operators and customers have been seeing. Diane, please.
Oh yes, I'll add on to that, all of those things. And we see also that when organizations are using that information to be much more proactive and in some instances preemptive, to notify the customer of what's happening before it even happens and say, we took care of this. We see increases in advocacy, which means lower cost of acquisition. We see increases in retention, meaning longer lifetime customer value. So we also add on to that equation of the tactical functional interaction piece with these more relationship-based behaviors that we're looking for. And so being able to use AI and biometrics to bring that to the customer and have them understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, it really builds that brand and that brand trust that we talk about. And we all know in this industry, it's very, very difficult. We're kind of starting at a very difficult time because of all the things that Ariel talked about. But our ability to help them understand we're there to protect them, we're there to serve them, we're there to make their lives easier, that comes back in fold by measurable financial impact as well, like the cost of acquisition and cost of retention.
Okay, so the next question for the panel, why is telecoms a laggard in CX? What stands in the way?
Diane, do you want to take it first, and I can?
I can start. I think we're overcoming a long-term hangover, if you will, of just years and years of telecoms not being trusted, of being, out for all the money they can get. It's really a reputation of the vertical. Not earned, I don't think, financially, but when everybody talks about it, whenever you ask somebody to share a bad experience they've had, it's typically with a cable or telecom company. And so we're almost starting behind the 8 ball, if you will, with being able to understand what the perception of the brand is, what's really driving the opportunities, and how we're going to address them. So one of the things that we learned at AT&T was, this is several years ago, that the bill itself, the readability of the bill, the way that it was organized, those things are really having an impact on how customers perceive the organization. So you really have to dig in and really think about, for our industry, what are those things that are most important to them? Understanding how their money's getting spent and what they're paying for, and are they getting the right value out of it? As costs continue to rise and we add fiber and 5G and all the automation, how are we really making that work for the customer and being upfront about that and taking credit for that, so as an industry they can see that we're moving in this direction. And some of the technology that Ariel's talking about is going to be our way of getting organizations and getting the customers there to really understand what we're doing, and taking credit for that as an industry to make sure they're secure, they've got feedback, we're proactively addressing their opportunities and needs and serving them in the way they want to be served. Ariel?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for your commentary. I think that maybe to add a couple of thoughts from my experience, working for quite a few years with the telco industry, I remember when I came into a contact center in a telco somewhere in around the world, I would see that the challenges they have are way more basic than the technology and AI and biometrics that we are talking about today. They had very, very basic challenges to overcome before they even could consider what I had to talk to them about. But what I'm seeing is that recently, the ease of moving between brands has become, much easier for us as consumers. The common experiences operators are looking to give us, to provide us as consumers who are so sensitive to the experience we have when we interact with a bank, with an insurance company. They are way more sensitive today to experience than they were, 10, 15 years ago. And I think that translates to many benefits for us as consumers, because they are investing in technologies. They are looking for ways to reduce friction for us. They are looking for ways to secure us as consumers. They understand that the value and assets we hold with a telco and operator can be significant for us as consumers. And all that translates into investments in biometrics, AI, technology. And I think we are now part of a very exciting era with operators in which we all can come together as an industry to provide an impact, a powerful impact in transformation in the way we interact with an operator, a transformative way in which we work for an operator and interact with consumers. All that is coming together now. So I really think that the timing of this webinar is actually great, because there is a lot going on, and there's a lot of work to do for all of us in the industry to really transform it and bring the best customer experience to the telco industry too.
I would agree with you. The industry underwent over the last decade, probably longer than that, all of this consolidation. And it really made everything so much more complex, because you're bringing these other organizations on board, and the market was changing, and the competition and how everybody thought about it. And now, with all of that subsiding a little bit, and the focus of the organizations to really understand experience and be more outside in, I think has changed their perspective a lot about what they need to do to compete. And the greatest thing about that is that technology can be that leapfrog. And we really see that happening with a lot of these organizations who have had a lot of this legacy heavy tech debt, who are now saying, we're going to move to the cloud, we're going to pull this in order to make sure that we're servicing our clients, customers, the way that we need to. And that wasn't by accident. I think it was all coming to that head point of the criticality of all of us being connected every day on our phones, right? Think about how critical it is for all of us, and in our homes, and on webinars like this, the ability to connect. We're dependent on them for that. And so our ability to understand and help telecoms think about how to leverage this new technology can get us to that leapfrog approach that you're talking about, Ariel. And I agree with you. We're on the kind of at the edge of the cliff, ready to see all these things kind of come to life that have been waiting for and consumers have been hungry for quite some time.
Brilliant, brilliant. Okay, thank you, Ariel and Diane, for the brilliant discussion of the topics today.
Ariel?
Just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Diane, for the collaboration. I learned a lot from you. I think we are, as I mentioned, I think it's a really exciting era in time to be part of. I'm so fortunate to be part of it, working with some of the largest and global brands around the world, seeing the efforts, the technology that they're looking at, the challenges they have. We all are in a great spot to really make a difference and make something significant here. So thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. I think it's such a dynamic era we're in right now, and really thinking about what's even going to happen over the next 2 or 3 years. If I did a retro on another webinar, we were talking about 10 years ago, and it seems unlikely that in 10 years from now, imagine what we'll be doing. So I think that's the other precipice for the organizations to really understand this is how things are going to work differently and better, and be able to really serve, and adopting them is really, it's super exciting. We have organizations doing it today who are just beginning to realize the impact it's going to have for their organization as well as their employees and customers. So it's a great time to see these things come to life, and appreciate your partnership too, Ariel, and for all of you for attending today. We hope you learned something.
Okay, so that wraps up today's webinar. Thank you for everyone tuning in. Hope you found this session insightful. Please email any questions you might have to andrea@thefastmode.com, and we will get back to you as soon as possible with the answers. Have a good day and see you again.